video. Oh no, we've started it.
Oh,
I pressed the wrong one. Okay, that's fine. There's no attendees at the moment, but there may be. So when you just want to start share screen, you'll see the share screen at the bottom, yeah?
shared screen.
There's a green button at the bottom of your screen.
No, there isn't.
Ah.
No,
But
there
maybe
isn't.
you didn't press the... Oh no, you are a co-host now.
No.
So at the bottom of your... Can you see your bottom of your screen? Maybe if you press escape.
Yeah. No, there's no green. There's no. I'm on an iPad.
Ah, okay.
No.
Where is the video on YouTube or is it on a...
No. There, share content. It's at the top.
Different for an iPad.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking. Okay. No, it's not giving me access to what I want to share, so we can forget that. It is not that massively
If you
important.
want to send it to me, email it to me now, or is it a big video?
Yeah, it's a video, Tracy. It's too big.
Is it on YouTube?
It's odd that it is not. It's not giving me the, because I'm on an iPad. It's not giving me the option to go into the files on the iPad.
Yeah, I think between Apple and Microsoft and Zoom, you probably struggle.
Not to worry. Not to
You
worry.
can send it to me if you want.
Yeah.
Is it on YouTube?
No. It may well be the Belton Farm to Fork. Just have a quick look, Tracy. It could be that might be the winner.
YouTube, Belton Farm to Fork. Let me have a look. No, I don't think they've maybe put a red fox one on.
It was a last minute thought, and it's not that important to me.
There's a recipe, and then there's the Belton Red Fox cheeseburger.
No,
it's mostly recipes. There's not a Belton Farm to Fork. Sorry.
Fine. It's just odd. It doesn't give me the option on here to get it from files.
We can always add that link on afterwards if you want.
Fine. Yeah, absolutely. Oh.
You found it? We're still all right. We've got 7 minutes yet if you want to keep looking.
I'm looking, but it's fine, in my opinion.
So are you going to do talk about the history of the farm and then do a tasting?
So my intention is to talk about the Beckett family arriving at Belton Farm and the cheesemaking history of that area, because there's been, clearly there's been some great content today. I've dipped in and out of content that's going, and it's all so varied and wonderful, isn't it? And one of the things that...
see more tasting of cheese, though.
Sorry?
I'd like to see more tasting of cheese. I'm very happy you've got that board there, because in previous years there's been a lot of tasting and pairing, and everybody seems to have gone to storytelling this year.
Yeah.
Needs to be a mix of both, really.
Yeah. So there's the story behind kind of the old traditional British cheese.
Cool. Well, we are off to a great start now with the Belton Farm, 100 years of farming. So over to you, the main man, Ian Coggin, who is going to tell us all about and taste some cheese. And I will be here in the question and answer or the chat if you want to put your questions in there, and I'll feed them to Ian. Okay, over to you, Ian.
Lovely, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you've enjoyed the day so far and learned these little nuggets of information about the wonderful cheeses that we are producing in this country. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Belton Farm. Belton Farm is a cheesemaker in Shropshire in the UK, and Belton Farm is the business of the Beckett family. It was 1922 when Stanley Beckett came to Belton Farm, and there was Cheshire cheese being made on the farm at that time. And then the business grew and developed, and Cheshire cheesemaking was at the heart of it. And then we moved into a purpose-built cheese production dairy, and was concentrating on block Cheshire cheese in particular. At Belton Farm, we produce a range of British territorial cheeses, regional cheeses. I'm going to talk to you about these regional cheeses, and we're going to try some. And they're seen as very much like the core of British territorial cheese making. Each region was known to be producing their own particular type of cheese. And where Belton Farm is, although we are in Shropshire, we are only 1 mile from the Cheshire border and very much involved in the Cheshire milk field. And everything we do starts with that quality local milk. We make the cheese on the farm at Belton and collect milk from farms surrounding Whitchurch and into Cheshire. The farmers that we partner with are absolutely vital to the strength of the business. This cheese making is about a very small number of things, really, and that is the quality of the milk, the very finest quality fresh milk to produce the cheese, and then the expertise and knowledge of the people that were involved in the cheese making process. And then, of course, there's time. And I'm always fascinated by the fact that in front of me here, I have a range of different regional cheeses, that they all have exactly the same raw ingredients. That's fresh local milk, some starter culture, the starter culture that gives the cheese its heart and these different kind of flavours and textures. And then there's the coagulant, the rennet, vegetarian rennet that we use at Belton Farm. And some of these cheeses have got the natural colouring in annatto. But other than that, the ingredients for these cheeses are common. And so it is milk, and it's time and heat and the skill of the cheesemaker that produces these different flavours and textures. And I'll start with the Cheshire cheese. And this is very much your traditional English Cheshire cheese. It's quite white in colour, as you can see. I hope that you can get that. That whiteness is there because we use quite a lot of starter culture in the recipe to produce a Cheshire cheese. That starter culture, the bacteria that are in the starter culture create the lactic acid. When they're feeding on the sugars in the milk, they create lactic acid, and that kind of bleaches the curd. And so you get this white, crumbly texture. You just get that up to room temperature, quite crumbly, as you can see, and then malleable. And then if you were tasting this, that is so fresh and light on the palate, and it gives you a nice shot of zing, kind of zest, and then right at the back you have a nice salty finish. And we often talk about milk from the area and Cheshire and the salt plains and the Cheshire milk field, and you just get that lovely, fresh, salty, tangy flavour with a crumbly Cheshire cheese. Cheshire cheese is recorded as being one of the oldest known cheeses in the UK. It was recorded, apparently, so legend as it is, recorded in the Domesday Book, the making of Cheshire cheese. Well, Belton Farm, making Cheshire cheese, the cheese would be made and then it was sold in the local town, in Whitchurch, at the local cheese fairs. And the traders would come along and they'd buy this cheese. And then it was shipped up to the populace into the city. It would be put on canal barges that went overnight. And these barges were towed up the Shropshire Canal and into Manchester and into the market. And the history of that time, when practically every farm within the area was making cheese, is quite fascinating. And my grandparents made cheese on their farm. Everybody was making cheese with any surplus milk. And the whole idea of the cheese making process was to use surplus milk in a very productive way. You couldn't afford to lose that milk. And what happened, you would find that farmers would have a surplus of milk and they might leave it over for more than a day or two. And then you realise that that milk hadn't been sold as liquid. And so they would turn it into cheese. And what was happening was the consistency and the quality of the cheese varied greatly because the quality of the milk wasn't as reliable as it could be. And so in every region of the UK, the government were working with people to kind of improve standards and get better qualities of British cheese being produced at farm level. And these kind of peripatetic teachers would travel the area and they would go from farm to farm and they would teach methods and recipes and hygiene standards to improve the quality of cheese production. And of course, as you improve the quality of your cheese production, you could get more money for every bit of cheese that you sold. And that was the bottom line. Make really good cheese, make it consistent, and you would get a better return on the milk. And that process continued until really the late 1940s. And the Milk Marketing Board was brought in after the Second World War, when food was in short supply, there was challenges, and the Milk Marketing Board was brought in, and they then bought all the milk off the farmers that were producing milk. A price was agreed, and basically the government were paying for the milk. And so, of course, production increased because every pint of milk, as it would be then, that you produced had a market, and you were going to get paid for it. And so it didn't matter how much you produced. And so a lot of people went out of cheese making. In Cheshire at the time, say, and Shropshire, every farm would be producing some cheese. After the Milk Marketing Board came in and all that changed, a lot of people went out of cheese production and a lot of the skills were lost. A lot of cheese making on farm just disappeared. And you go around farms and you might find that they have a cheese press stone or some other piece of equipment that was used long ago in cheese making. But they've all stopped doing it. And the Milk Marketing Board took this milk and they went into more large scale cheese production. They're producing cheese in central collection points. Invariably, the majority of it being cheddar cheese that dominated the market. And Belton Farm took a different path, and Belton Farm continued to produce these regional British cheeses. And as time moved along, we got to the late 1990s, and the Milk Marketing Board was being deregulated, and the milk market was being opened up as a free commercial market again. And Belton Farm went direct supply to a number of farmers. And we can say that a number of the farmers that we still buy our milk off today have been with Belton right from the onset of having that direct supply contract. That's a really important place to be for Belton. because these farmers that we buy the milk off, we work very close with them. We understand their needs and they understand what we need for making the cheese. And the quality of milk that comes in for cheese making over the years has improved significantly. And it means that at the heart of it, the product is more consistent. And that is still today, as it was back in the 1920s when Stanley Beckett first arrived at Belton Farm. Producing that consistent, reliable quality of a particular cheese, particular variety. If you produce Cheshire cheese and your customers really like that Cheshire cheese, they need to be able to buy that exactly the same week in, week out. And so there was quite a lot of variance. And now working with the farmers, working directly with the farmers directly, we've improved quality and hygiene on farm standards, and we continue to work with the farmers today. It is a very intense relationship. The milk production, the standards, what we're trying to achieve at the moment on greenhouse gas emissions and welfare on farm. There is lots of work being done. We have a farm liaison manager that knows all the farmers personally, and we spend time on the farms, and it really is about a partnership and working together as we go forward. I think the cheese that we produce at Belton Farm, I am happy to say that our quality and what we'd say for the different varieties of regional cheeses, we are very much about being true to type. And that's a phrase that we use within Belton when we are looking at cheese. Is it true to type? And this Cheshire, crumbly, bright, white, open, absolutely true to type. It's a very long-standing, old-fashioned recipe. People are so loyal to these cheeses, and if you were to alter recipes and change characteristics, you know, there would be emails these days. There would be communication, because people really understand these cheeses. The next one I'm going to look at, this is Belton Farm Double Gloucester. Now, at Belton, as I've already said, we make a range of British regional territorial cheeses. We are specialists at making these regional cheeses. And Double Gloucester is a very special cheese. It's quite a young cheese, and it's quite a soft texture, and it's malleable. But I tell you, a cheese does not need to be strong to have great flavour. I love strong cheese, but a Double Gloucester, I'm just warming that up now in my fingers there. That's so malleable and lovely and smooth. And when you smell that, it is rich and creamy. It smells like the dairy. It smells like you're going in the cheesemaking room. And then it coats your mouth with such a rich, unctuous creaminess. It's a very underrated cheese, this Double Gloucester, and it is, you may have noticed, one of my favourites. I really enjoy it, and it's so versatile. I move on from the Double Gloucester, and we talk a little bit now about the developments that we've had at Belton with our traditional cheeses. And we can see that the market is always moving. We have at our core British territorial cheeses. That's Cheshire cheese, Wensleydale cheese, Caerphilly cheese, Red Leicester and Double Gloucester. At Belton, you can see that consumers' tastes are changing. Look at the market and look at different products that are out there, and we try all these things. And so some time ago, we decided that we should do some product development with our Red Leicester cheese. Now, Red Leicester cheese within the UK and the market, a very popular cheese with consumers after cheddar cheese, one of the most popular in the UK. And the flavour characteristics of a Red Leicester cheese are very, very distinctive. The surface of the cheese is kind of slightly open textured. There will be fractures and fissures. The flavour of the cheese is kind of almost savoury. It's a very mellow, savoury kind of brothy flavour that can leave you with a little nuttiness. It's quite complex, is red Leicester. But we decided that consumers were looking for different flavours and different characteristics, and we would develop and modernise red Leicester. So this is when the work started with what was ultimately to become Red Fox, Belton Farm Red Fox. And Red Fox is our halo product. Red Fox is Belton Farm brand for a British territorial. Nobody else has done that. Nobody else has turned a territorial into a brand such as Red Fox. So what did we do with Red Fox? I can tell you it was not a short process. Making cheese is not the finest business model, as everybody will be aware. You produce your cheese, you use some different starter cultures, you maybe use some different temperature on the vat, adjust cutting times. And then once that cheese is made, you have to put it in the cold store and you have to mature it and forget about it, because you have to wait for it to get to the age profile and the flavours that you are desiring to develop. And so the cheese will be looked at and graded, and it will just be graded purely on a technical basis to be sure that there was no faults appearing in the cheese over this maturation process. And by the time you would get the cheese to it over, let's say, a year old or a little bit more, you could see the type of cheese that was developing, and was this the product that we were looking for, what was to become Red Fox. If not, there's more trials done, there's more vats of cheese made, there's more milk put into the vats, and the guys making the cheese at Belton Farm are very much hands-on. We are not a continuous process. We make a good volume of cheese at Belton Farm, but we're a very traditional business. At the heart of the business are open cheese vats and cooling tables. When the curd and the whey comes out of the vat and onto the cooling table, it is cut and turned by hand, it is salted by hand, and then it is filled into moulds by hand and then into the pressing. So developing Red Fox, it took quite some time before you have a number of batches and you start to get something that you know you're on the right track, you know where you're heading. And ultimately that led to Red Fox. Call it Red Fox. Why do we call it Red Fox? The name. So Red Fox is a Leicester cheese. It's a red Leicester cheese, starting out as a red Leicester cheese. And there is a connection with Leicester and the football team, or the Foxes, and Belton. Also, there is a tenuous connection with Belton House in Leicestershire. And so the Red Fox name was born on the back of all these kind of connections that there were. But also at Belton Farm, flying over the stables, above the clock, we have a weather vane, and on the top of that weather vane, for many, many years, all the time that the Beckett family had been farming at Belton Farm, there was a fox. He's had a good lick of red paint, and so he is now actually a red fox. But flying above Belton Farm, there's always been the fox on the weather vane. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about Red Fox now. And as you can see, the colour is very intense red, deep red Leicester. Open texture slightly. You can see there that there are fissures in the surface. When you smell that, you start to get an aroma as you warm that cheese up. It breaks down very nicely, and you start to, on the nose, you can almost smell the caramelly notes coming through. Red Fox has got so many different layers going on. where you have that authentic red Leicester flavour. You have the savoury notes, a little bit of brothiness. And then you get the richness of that flavour right at the back of your mouth. It tingles, makes your mouth water. And then you have a little bit of that cunning crunch from the calcium lactate crystals. And then finally, left with a sweet caramelly butterscotch flavour that just lingers and lingers. It's incredibly Moorish and incredibly complex. Replicating it, once we got the recipe and we understood what the final goal was, we've been able to reproduce Red Fox and develop Red Fox. At the same time, we did a White Fox. This is White Fox. So interestingly, White Fox is a white Leicester. Did you know that Leicester cheese was originally white? Leicester cheese has not always been red. We believe that the red colouring was put into red Leicester to distinguish it from cheddar. There was lots of cheddars and lots of competition in the cheese market, as there always has been. And so the makers started to put the colouring into their white Leicester and produce this red Leicester. And it clearly worked, because red Leicester has become a real staple in the fridges of many, many consumers throughout the UK. And red Leicester, traditional, authentic, true red Leicester, is a delicious, delicious cheese. And they really are worth seeking out. The latest edition.
A couple of questions for you, Ian. So the first one is, do Belton Farm make any soft cheeses?
No, we do not make soft cheeses. We're not really, our equipment, our cheese making vats, etc., are not set up for soft cheese production.
No, to the territorials.
Yeah, absolutely, regional, territorial. So we're not a continuous system either, Tracy. So, you know, we make many different types of cheese in a day. We can make Cheshire cheese in the morning, and then in the afternoon we can do sage Derby. So traditional Derby cheese with sage added to it, and that is made in the vat, and we can batch produce throughout the day. It's not a continuous process.
Fantastic. And then there's another question, which actually is quite interesting. So, and I think this is what Rachel means, is do you use different breeds for different cheeses? So I think it's all cow's milk, isn't it?
Yes, it is, right? But talking about the milk field, the milk that we use is all cow's milk. But the farmers that we work with have mixed herds.
Right, okay.
We want a mix of milk. We don't just want milk from Holstein Friesian milking machines, you know, great yield, but we get our milk quality improves because of the mix of herds that come into Belton Farm. So we have got guys that are milking Jersey cows, and so that gives us that rich, creamy milk. And we've got Paul's Swiss. We've got all kinds of different breeds within the overall herd that are supplying Belton Farm. We collect the milk from the farms that supply Belton every day. Not every other day, we collect every day. I believe the smallest farm that we collect our milk from milks less than 40 cows. And because we go past the road end, we still pick that milk up every day. Yeah.
But that milk will come to the farm, and so it will be a mix. So say Red Leicester wouldn't be made specifically with milk from a certain farm. It would all come in. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. What we're trying to get is we're getting the fats and proteins in the milk at the right level for cheese production. So fats and proteins are what we need for making great cheese and consistency. And as I alluded to, working with the farmers, the quality of that and the standard of the milk that comes in has improved greatly.
Yeah.
We do segregate milk for, we make organic cheese, and we segregate our milk for organic cheese production. And we also, because of the size that we are, we are of a volume, but we are also, we are a family-run business based on the farm. And so we are able to be quite quick-witted and move and adapt. And so we actually, we segregate milk that comes in from our Welsh farms, and that Welsh milk we use to make our kefili. Our kefili is all made with Welsh milk.
Fantastic. Yeah.
We're able to kind of do these different things and adapt and adjust.
And I know, sorry, these are a couple of questions from me. And it's fantastic. I didn't know you were doing white fox, so that was a great knowledge. And I know red fox has been a massive success for you guys. And you're now exporting cheese from Cheshire and Shropshire, Cheshire border all over the world, aren't you?
Yes, we do. We have been incredibly fortunate, and Red Fox has opened doors for us, and it is such a thrill when you get some feedback from a customer in California saying how wonderful your Red Fox cheese is. It is a great thrill, and we export to Canada, the USA, Australia, South Africa, and Europe. The European market is important for us for our organic cheese production. The market for organic.
Red Fox on the south in the south of France a couple of weeks ago as well.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. No, it is. It's great, and we don't always know where the cheese has gone, and we get these calls from people saying they bought it in the south of France, and it's just such a thrill. It's wonderful.
I know, and what a lovely success story for a small, a family farm, and still family run.
Absolutely.
Absolutely awesome. And you were saying earlier that you've worked there now, was it 7 years?
Yeah, Belton, the Beckett family have been at Belton Farm for 100 years. I've been at Belton for 7, but this is my 40th year in cheese. I started cheesemaking in 19.
As a boy.
Absolutely.
As a boy. Well, we're coming to the close. I mean, congratulations. That's amazing. I think I've done 17 or 18 years in cheese now, but 40 is fantastic. And congratulations to all of the team at Belton. I have had the joy of visiting you guys when I used to live in Shropshire, and it is a wonderful place. Keep up the really good work of embracing those territorial cheeses as well, because they're very special to Britain, and you do a fantastic job of that. I think that's, hang on, we've got one more question before we go, yep. And we must shoot because the next, do you use Helvetica starters? I think you make your own starter cultures, don't you?
Yeah, we use a range of starter cultures depending on the recipe, on the type of cheese that we are producing. So the traditional Wensleydales and Cheshires, there's no Helveticas in those, no. And the regional cheeses, these British territorials, what we say at Belton Farm is that there is more to cheese than cheddar. Wonderful, but I would always implore consumers, cheddar +1. Try some of these amazing, independently produced British cheeses.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. A really, really lovely session, and thank you for telling us all about it. And thank you to everybody for joining. Okay, we're going to head off to the next.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thanks, Ian.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.